guys? This is Geef / Kev69 back at another crappy video. It's been a while, but a few interesting things happened in the PC world, so we wanted to give an update about that. There's still no modern game to play. Cyberpunk is still not ready. KURWA! Far Cry 6 delayed. There's potentially some games we're interested coming out at the end of the year. Battlefield in a modern era. But I'm not sure if that can be successful anymore. Like, FPS meta has just kind of moved on. It's all like 5v5 squad, circle jerk shit. And like the last two Battlefields bombed pretty hard. And I liked BF4, but the community's just awful. Like, you could never get a good game. It'd be like one clan circle jerking, because you're in Australia with low population, so you don't have that much choice on like servers. And then there was like the locker meta where everyone just played fucking locker, which is like a tiny map with 2 choke points where everyone just runs in with shotguns. But yeah, not sure about that. And also Age of Empires 4, RTS, dead genre. So still waiting for that. We've obviously been keeping tabs on the overclock community. And what started all this, this guy who got a 16k CPU score in timespy, and we were like, damn, like, we need that. How does he do it? And he's actually gotten a 17k now, so the bar's been moved even further. Because we'd only get around 15. And obviously, you know, we're not an extreme overclocker, 15 to 15.5k. So there was motivation to get that. Plus the new AMD driver, which is really good, which is the main point of this video. But remember I was saying with the more power tool, eventually you'll set it to infinity. Like, there's a legend doing God's work. It's a kind of blurry screenshot. Hopefully you can see it, but he's setting power limit 999. Thermal current limit 999. on the memory. So if we don't hear from him in a while, in a few weeks, then we'll know what happened, right? But yeah, this shout outs to, what was his name? Lowrider05. You're doing God's work, man. And one other thing, I guess we'll talk about that later, but like, you could actually, some of the custom cards came with BIOSes where this bottom one here, which is the memory, was higher than stock. It was like 60, and apparently that would help with memory stability, but I don't think that's true. People were saying maybe they thought that, but I've tried 70, but we'll get to that later. But I don't think it helps at all, and I'm convinced the memory's just not stable above, in my case, 2116. You can finish runs at 2150 and you can get a better score, but it's like Russian roulette. Like, it's gonna crash some of the time. And like, we've just finished up phase 2 of our overclocking journey, and like, we've rebooted like 800 million times. And sometimes, you know, when it crashes from overclocking, like, the BIOS gets corrupted, and then you have to like do all this crap, and then like all the settings, and like, sometimes you can't just change all the settings in one BIOS thing, because sometimes the BIOS crashes when you're saving it. I think that's if you just change too many things in one thing. And then the AMD like USB cycling power issue, like it's still a thing. Sometimes like your keyboard doesn't like turn on until the post screen goes to the next step, so you can't even get into the BIOS. I'm not sure if it's the AMD thing or maybe my shitty old keyboard's just the USB connector's fucked. I don't know. But so yeah, we're kind of rambling at this point, but we wanted to start on the CPU. I guess we'll move that away. And so we went back. In the other video, we were saying that what we thought was the CPU crashing was actually the GPU crashing, and it was the memory. But we thought it was the CPU crashing, so we could actually be more aggressive on our PBO. And also it's cold in Australia finally, so there's like a massive temperature swing on like thermals. But the grayingtechs, a guy who makes videos that are really good, that we referenced about the more power tool, he made another one about overclocking Ryzen Zen 3, and it brings up some interesting like thought process into how you can do it. So first, you want to like confirm like what your CPU can even do. So the default boost is 4.9, and so you want to know like stock whether you can even do that, because that's not guaranteed. Like Silicon Lottery, so you get something like Hardware Info. I'll obviously link his videos. It's like a 7-part series, so it's pretty long, but it's really interesting information. And even though what he does won't get you the best single run score, because unfortunately the best single run score is unlock all the power and just pray that the thermals are blessed and you just get a good score, and it's just one and done run. Whereas this method, it's better for like sustained clocks. But so you go to the max clock, and you want to see like what does your CPU even reach at a max, because if it can't even boost, and then you have that core offset, it doesn't matter what you set. And this is the point that he brings up. There's no point trying to reach a target that you can't reach, because we're in this dynamic boost clock era, and there's all sorts of like processing around that. If it can't reach something but it's still trying to, it's going to hurt your performance. And that's where the core offset, if you set a 200 but your chip doesn't even do 5 gigahertz, it's not going to be good. So I would first, and that's what we did, like see what it can even reach. And like our chip is pretty bad, like under power limit stock, and it kind of made sense that the offsets that we were using weren't necessarily optimal. But obviously if you're going for a max one run, you just have to, you know, set it to max and unlock all the power and just pray that it works. I'm still a bit sick. So seeing what you can even boost to, because like if you set it to like 200 and you're not even getting like 50-50, which is only if 4.9, I'm not sure if it's at 4.9 on the box, but is it 50/50 is the actual stock? So like, if you never see 5100, 5150, there's no point even trying. God damn, just start talking and you just start choking. So, and like, yeah, like stock and like default power limits, like the chip barely even turns on, so. Yeah, so once you determine that, that's like to narrow down your core offset. But then you want to, then I would look at the PBO, because the PBO negative offset's going to affect how those cores behave, obviously, because you're dropping the voltage. And like, these chips are so sensitive in this dynamic boost clock era that like stock, it might not even be capable. Like my chip stock is like super power hungry at stock, but it's capable of quite a high, basically almost maxed, except on two best cores, negative core offset. So you can't just base it off stock, but it's a starting point to see what it can even do, and then find out when your PBO starts crashing, your negative core offsets. And look at what actual max clock your chip can even do. Because if you never see those numbers, there's no point even trying to hit them. So that's like the offset. But the second part he brings up is, so we open up Cinebench, R23, and we open up, what are we looking for? This is like really hard, like you just turn into a retard once the camera's rolling. Rizeno Master, and we're in PBO at the moment, so depending on what you use, PBO or Auto OC, if you're not in that mode, like if I click apply, it'll want to reset. But if you're Auto OC, it only needs to reset if you change the boost override, and then you can change PBT, TDC, and EDC on the fly, and this is what grayingtechs shows in his video. We're in PBO, so we can just click apply, and now we'll be able to change these on the fly, so hopefully the CPU doesn't crash. But if you just start Cinebench, and it's just running, and you can see in real time how your clocks are, and we found for sustained like 4.6 PBO, and then you can look at the EDCs, and that's another point that like if you're going for one run max, like this isn't the most optimal. The most optimal is to just, like I previously did, set it to max, fully unlock everything, and then just pray for your one run thermals. And if we look, like we hit This is a double screen. I don't even know if you'll be able to see this. We hit 30.4. But in this case, we're only hitting 29.2 in a continuous operation. But looking at the actual core speeds, these are the highest we could get off a PBO. So the next step would be to try a fixed OC, and I guess that'll be our third phase. But going back to these limits, so you can change these on the fly. So the stock 142.90 and 140 is the stock, and you click apply, and if we go back, so stock, we're barely hitting 4 gigahertz. That's how like capped it is. So like when people were like, oh, my Zen 3 CPU runs nice and cool, it's like stock, it barely even turns on. Like, so it's a cool demonstration how you can see how these numbers change. And just setting them, if I set them to max, what was it, 540, 350, oh, not 350, 600. So we got 1200, 540, 600. They're all max, but we're only getting 4.5. Now, we're at a 75 boost override, so this isn't best case like full juice. So in this case, fully unlocked doesn't give us better. But again, we're not going for a one run max, we're going for like good sustained, which we found in this case to be T 170, 160. And we're back at 4.6, and you can play, you know, 175, 155, you can go up and down and you'll find your spot. And when it comes to long-term continuous runs, being close to numbers that it'll never reach is actually better. But again, this is not the best. This is not optimal for a one and done best score, but it's a fun way to play with it. So I definitely recommend checking out that video series. It goes through all the steps and how are we doing on script. So yeah, so again, our previous crash. So we ended up, now that we knew that it wasn't the CPU, we negative 30 on all, except for our two best, 4 and 6. And we did, I think it was negative 22 and negative 26 on our best, whereas previously they were 18 and 16. Another thing is like Gigabyte BIOS, like I still don't trust their BIOS, and they're still, you know how F33 went all the way up to, it went up to like HIL, I think, and then they've recently finally released F34. They're still like tinkering with it, so And yeah, for the future, that guy who's got the 16K, he's now got a 17K CPU score, and he says he's running 4.8 fixed OC. Plus he's got like proper water cooling, I think. I'm not sure if a fixed OC is going to hurt on the GPU tests, because the CPU test is obviously high thread count, but I don't think the graphics tests have. So wouldn't you lose score using a fix during that portion, because you won't be able to get the 5 gigahertz boost if you're not PBO? So I'm not sure if we'll be able to hit 17.K, but I still haven't tried a fixed OC, so we need to see how that. Obviously, for a one and done max, we hit 30.5 on R23. So that's dynamic overclocking with cinebench based on grayingtechs. Do we need? I guess we'll just close that. So the next part, he said, because we could only hit like 15 to 15.5 on average CPU score. So he was talking about tighter memory timings, and we still hadn't got to memory overclocking. And memory overclocking is like awful, because if you've ever seen how many settings there are. Oh, so we've still got this open. So we actually had to switch out the flash, the dark theme, because otherwise we get flashbang. But in this case, you can't actually see the numbers. So you'll have to we just made a picture back when we were doing it. Then we were like, oh, we can just change the theme because we're autistic. But so there's this thing called RAM calculator, which will give you like better timings. So Zen timings, so just the thing. First, you want to validate your timings, especially if you're running like an XMP profile. Like we've got the Trident with the XMP, and when I was doing this, I noticed TRFC wasn't actually what the XMP profile should be. But I'm not sure if that was because, you know, the first time we tried to do memory, we just completely effed it up and the system crashed. Then we were like, nah, F that. Then this guy's got the 16K CPU score, so we're like, we need this. So we gave it another shot, and we tried again, and we just crashed instantly. Then we came up with a new method, which we'll get to. But when we were inputting values, we noticed that this wasn't like the XMP profile is like 312. And then it shrinks based on a ratio. But it was actually like 600. So it wasn't actually using what it should be. So you should probably check whether your XMP is actually doing what it's supposed to. But yeah, to use the DRAM calculator, you need something called, you need to identify your RAM. So if you already know what it is, then you can input these values. But if you don't know, you use this called Thaiphoon burner. Click read. Read any of your things, assuming they're all the same. So you'll have, you know, This was made way back in Zen 2 and it hasn't been updated, but it apparently still works fine. I guess there'll be links to all these things. So we're obviously AM4, Samsung B-Die. There's a GitHub list of like B-Die. If you search like DRAM B-Die identifier or something, but this will give it to you as well. If we can find where it is. Does this one even tell me? B-Die, yeah. So B-Die. For this part we're going to do manual, but I don't think this matters. I don't know. Rank is obviously how many, the typically 8 gigs is just one rank, whereas 16 is both sides, so you can see the rank. Can't even read this. Where is it? Two ranks. The speed that you're going to be running it at, so not the base, we're 3600 XMP. We're actually going to consider trying to overclock the F clock Infinity fabric, but that'll be phase 4. How many you've got? X570. And then you click report, go down the bottom, turn this into nanoseconds. Then click export, complete HTML report. We've already made one. Did that just show something we didn't want to see? No, that's fine. Lucky. Then you'll go down the bottom here, import XMP, and you'll go to that file and it'll fill these numbers in. But I'm not even sure if that matters, because you just click calculate fast and then it generates all the numbers. Obviously we're in dark theme, so you can't even see any of them. But so there was another video that we watched about a guy doing this, and I've always been scared of memory OC just because there's so many values that you have to change, and the difference is so small that it doesn't matter in terms of performance. So we thought, well, let's just change the ones that have the biggest delta, like the biggest difference. And the guy in that video was like, I only think like TRC, TRFC make the biggest difference. So we were like, we'll just change the ones that have the biggest difference between the XMP and these fast values. So we picked RAS because this was like 35, I think. RC, this was like 54 because this was like really high, and TRFC, which, like I said before, I don't know if it was using the wrong value or the XMP profile was bugged, because it was like 650. So at the end we'll go to the BIOS and look at how you input these values. But so we just decided to pick the biggest delta ones and just use those. And there is a crappy benchmark here which we didn't even run properly, but we've got some screenshots. So this is stock memory, no XMP. So the actual bench we didn't even run because we couldn't be bothered, and it seems kind of crappy. But if you just look at the goal to hit 16K CPU in timespy and memory OC is the way, apparently, outside of like hardcore overclocking. Thaiphoon burner to ID your RAM so you can fill in the values in DRAM calc. And we just picked there's all these other options like all of this shit, like voltage and all this bullshit, but I just figured the XMP profile is running 145 volts. That's like plenty, right? Like for what we're doing. We're not changing like the really, like these ones where the difference is like 1, and it's a small number. It's a large percentage of that number. So these will just lead to errors, I think. And we're lazy. We don't actually want to test stuff. So the XMP juices the RAM super high. So we're only changing like the important ones. And like with RAM OC, like the crashes are even worse with like bad RAM OC. So like like it can be so bad that like the computer doesn't even know that it's like it's bad. So yeah, we already talked about how the XMP wasn't even using the settings it should. So you want to use that Zen timing to actually see whether it's actually using what it should be. And we're going to go into the BIOS at the end, but obviously we've got this like set up so we don't want to right now. So at the end we'll go into the BIOS. So the GPU section, this is like the main part of the reason for this video. So the 271 driver came out, 2171, and there's just big gains to be had. And we already talked the RAM. I'm convinced the RAM's just not stable above, in our case, 2116. You can finish runs at 2150 and get better scores, but it just crashes. Like the chance of the run finishing is lower. There's flickering, and then there's just constant random crashes, like idling or. So yeah, I don't think it's worth running the memory above 2100, 20, whatever your thing is. Maybe you can do 2150, I don't know, but unless you're going for a one run max, I don't think it's worth it. And one thing we didn't mention, the last thing, is every time you upgrade your driver, change your driver. I don't know if it's because we use display driver uninstaller to clean the whole thing up. You have to redo more power tool every time you change the driver. And so last time we did 350, 370. This time we went 375, 470. At the time, people was thinking that the third value, which is the memory, a larger one would help with stability, but I don't think it matters at all. And with the plus 15%, we're at like 425, and the card doesn't even hit that during the benchmark as a max. So I guess we're already at like power cap. We're not power limited anymore. So we'll get to our timespy. So our previous best was 2700 core, 2100 memory. Actually, no, this isn't our best. It was 2150, even though it wasn't stable. So this was back in the 2.2151 driver. It's actually this one. So 2151 driver, 20.3, graphics core 21.5, CPU score 15.5. And with the 2171 driver, we gained nearly 2K graphics score. And we obviously managed to hit our goal of 16K, 16.1K CPU score. And we hit 21, nearly 22. And on a Red Devil original, not the ultimate, not the cherry-picked silicon super juiced one. So massive boost just from this driver and obviously the CPU score. And it's funny, that result was good enough in 3D Mark. This is sorted by single GPU on timespy in Australia. We managed to get the 8th best, but because you can put as many results as you want for the same config, you can see there's duplicates. So 1, 2, 3, same guy again. We've got the 4th best. We've got the 4th best single GPU system in Australia. Feels good, man. I'll take it. So that's our timespy result. And then also we've got firestrike. Less gains here because obviously it's an older DX11. So our previous best 44.1, 57 graphics. And we managed to beat it and get 44.8, 59K graphics. Physics score didn't actually improve here, and that was good enough for 11 overall in Australia. And counting for duplicates, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th best in Australia. Firestrike doesn't scale with multi-GPU, so this is just all systems. Feels good, man. Did we open... No. So we also just, for the hell of it, did a Firestrike Extreme. We don't have a 4K monitor, so we can't, there's no much point running Extreme timespy. What are we looking for? Firestrike Extreme. Oh, we didn't mention. So timespy was, I guess you could see it on the picture. The timespy was 2750, 2116. That should be 2, I guess. 1100 undervolt. Because we're in the dynamic boost clock, so like sustained clocks are more important than like burst clocks, because the tests are pretty long. Obviously there's the driver, and this is just our new CPU bench, CPU overclock and memory overclock. So yeah, that's our Firestrike Extreme. You can see third best Firestrike Extreme. Single GPU with... No, this is Firestrike, so it doesn't matter. Third best firestrike extreme in Australia. And we ran Port Royal just for the hell of it. Obviously AMD doesn't do ray tracing, so it's dog shit. What's it called? Port Royal P? Pee-wee Royal. We got screenshots of we've got 2 wins in. Oh yeah, so timespy was 2750, whereas firestrike we had to drop it to 2725. Maybe I should try at max voltage. Maybe we could go higher, but we like this undervolt. Because, yeah, maybe we should try this phase 2.5 overclock. And that was our Port Royal score. It's obviously dog shit, so it's all 3090s. So that's the GPU section. So I'll just say, if you haven't updated to 271, like, you're missing out. Like, massive gains to be had. And we just wanted to do an update on prices in Australia. So this is PC Case Gear. This is like Australia's biggest PC hardware shop. Let's have a look, shall we? There's actually starting to come down. Right. 6800s all sold out. So these aren't real prices. 6900. These have started to come down. So we got it. Remember, we got a limited for 1800, 1799. So that used to be 2700. Now it's back to 2300 for a non-limited. They have the ultimate one, so the cherry-picked silicon 2700, and then like other ones, like they had the formula. What brand was it? It was like 3700. It's gone now. I can't imagine anyone would have paid that much for it. 3K. Um, 3090s, 3800, $4,000, 4200. And like the timespy scores are like on par with a OC custom 3090. These are sold out, so yeah, insane. 3080 Ti, the refresh of the 80 series, $3,000, 3300, 3500. Couple of sold out, 3K. Like, that was just another reason we got the 69. Like, it wasn't just for the memes, it was also, we knew availability would be bad, so we sniped the 69 for 1800 limited just for the hell of it. So yeah, 3K, some of them sold out, and then 3080s, 2500. I guess these aren't too bad. Starting to come back into stock. And then like the GPU segregation, 3060, 3060 Ti, 3070. You remember the good old days when there was like two models? There was like the cheap one, and then there's like the good one. Now you've just got every $50, well, starting at 1600 for like some crappy like It's just insane that this is why I didn't buy a computer for like 15 years. We bought a laptop. It's so bad. But yeah, so that's the prices update. I guess we can look at the 5950X has actually gone down. Oh, not call this. We paid $12.50, so 800 for a 59, all in stock. CPUs have all caught up. How much? 11900Ks in stock, 850. And 10th gen, are they still making these? 10900. 10900K. It's all good. I guess we could just quickly look at we typically have like 700 tabs open, like the BIOS, yeah, so R34, R33, and R33 went up to I. But yeah, that's just some random trivia. And then before we go to the BIOS, future techs, like, getting excited. Like, anyone, it only took 15 years of like stagnation, but like those Zen 4 server chips with 128 cores, damn, dude, I need one of those. They're probably going to cost like 10K. Apparently they're going to stick the next ones at 16 core though, so it'll only be the server chips. 6 chiplets of what, like 32? Or 16 or whatever. Insane. And then PoE, new PoE league soon. All the nerfs. I'm surprised like how much salt there is. I mean, you're surprised, but you're not really surprised, but I don't know. Played some Royale. We have 2 wins with Blight, obviously. We want the spit rower, but like we're kind of over it already. Like, you only get a crappy baby rat for 2 wins. Like, I think you need 6 wins to get the next upgrade. And like, people are just getting better at it, and it's hard to even find a full game in Australia. Plus there's just less like bad players. But yeah, so I guess we'll reboot into the BIOS just to finish up this long crappy ramble. I have to remember to press the key. Let's see if we can get into the BIOS on the first try. I found that if you just mash the key, it's actually bad. Oh god, the BIOS is upside down. Well, shit. We got into the BIOS, but it's upside down. Well, shit, we need to unplug that monitor. Let me go over here. Exit without saving. I'm going to unplug and then press enter. Oh god, my hand doesn't fit. Ugh. Oh, hopefully that works. Please. There we go. There we go. Pressing del. Nah, we failed. Oh, we got there. So, this is obviously gigabyte BIOS, but you'll have your XMP, but then you'll have to go into advanced memory subtiming. So you'll take a picture and like, this is why I never like memory overclocking. Look at this shit. TRC, TWD, fuck off, dude. Like 20,000 different little things. Like, who gives a shit, dude? But so, use your phone, take a picture of the settings. Do we even want to show our phone? Probably not. But so we just went on top of the XMP profile because we're lazy, and hey, it works, right? You can't, but the performance shows. So we changed, like we said, the ones that have the biggest delta. So in this case, it was TRAS, TRC, TRFC, and like this is where the XMP is supposed to be 312, but for some reason it was 650. But I don't know if that's just because we crashed and then it just effed itself. But yeah, so we put in the recommended 288. But one thing is, in the second tab, there's a calculation for RFC 2 and 3 and 4, sorry. Like, it's easiest just to convert, because it's in seconds, nanoseconds, whereas this is like I don't even know what the unit here is, but it's easier to just find the value, like 288, as, like, because the calculator, you have to input it in seconds, nanoseconds, so you got to find whatever the number is that gives you 288, and then it'll calculate these two, and then you just put them in. And then T4 was the other one that we changed because there was a huge difference, and then the rest is all just auto. And clearly that does something, because the performance doesn't lie. And that's it. So then, our current phase 2 overclock settings. Again, not a we're not in like best case one run and done max juice, but this is more sustained, and we're on -30 all, -24 on core 4 and 6, which are 5 and 3 because it starts at 0. -24, -26, and -30 all. That's our BIOS. This is supposed to be 75. I think because we pressed that thing. In Ryzen Master, it changed it or whatever, but yeah. So that's our current settings. Is there anything? Oh shit. Can I get hacked if people know my... Whoops. You didn't see that. And that's it. There you go. Crappy PC depressed man rambling about bullshit. There you go. So TRDL, get the new AMD driver. It's good. And I guess that's it. So until the next time, goodbye.